Melissa's going to spend some time showing y'all a solution that we implemented in Pavilion that looks very simple from the clinician's perspective and was very complex in our world.
Thank you, Melita. We're going to take a look at the Nurse Call Smart Panels from concept to reality. A Nurse Call Smart Panel is the Smart Panel is a nurse call communication device that's a one-touch system that is fully customizable and has multiple actions that can be performed. Julie, if you can go to the next slide. This is an example. You can see May 2011. This is a mock-up of what we felt as we started our planning stages of what the Smart Panel could potentially look like for us. And as we started our planning meetings, we knew it was going to be important. I know other people have discussed this before, but we needed to speak a familiar language with everybody involved in the room. We also needed to have a familiar understanding of the product. We developed a multidisciplinary team, which included nursing leaders, educators, IS, information services, biomed, and the vendor was actually involved as well as we decided on the workflows for these panels. We scheduled routine design meetings. We met weekly with every single member that I just listed to help develop the workflows to implement this technology. We also communicated regularly. We built documents that tracked our design and our issues throughout the project, so we knew what decisions we made and continued. We also use familiar products to introduce it to our end users. We developed a automated PowerPoint presentation where we embedded that smart panel that you see on the screen and actually automated it to simulate what the panel would look like in reality. We would click on a button and it would go to another screen and it would show a potential output of pushing that button. And then we started our work. That screen actually started our workflow discussions of what we were going to do with each button press. So some of the questions that we asked as we implemented this is, what was the expected action of this button press? Was it going to call a phone, a landline? Was it going to call a Volt phone? Was it going to send a text message? Was it going to be an alarm? Who was the expected recipient? Was it one person? Was it multiple people? Was it going to light a light outside of the room? If it did, what was the color of this button press outside of the room? And was it going to make a sound? If it made a sound, what was the tone? All important decisions that we needed to make. We also needed to know if the recipient didn't respond, was it going to escalate to someone else? And we had to do that for every single button on these screens. You can go back. We're not sorry, Julie. Other things that we needed to consider as we implemented this technology was standardization. That was very important because this is a nurse call device. We wanted to make sure these panels are in every single patient room and also in our operating rooms as well. We needed it to be standardized. So whether you're a nurse working a mother-baby and if you floated to labor and delivery, the panel needed to look the same so you would be able to call a code should you need a code. And so standardization is very important as you implement this type of technology. We also didn't want to apply a lot of color. We only applied color to these screens if it was meaningful. We didn't want a rainbow effect on this home screen. We also allowed, even though we were standard, we also allowed the departments to have some customization. We have a department options button that allowed them to individualize workflows and have some unique opportunities there of certain people they would call and so forth. So you could go ahead to the next screen, Julie, thank you. This is actually what the panel looked like on opening day, March 2012. You can see it looks quite different from our initial planning to what we actually implemented when we went live. We developed many workflows that supported multiple departments and also multiple users. And some of the simple workflows that I'm going to highlight that we implemented is the MD rounding button. When you press this MD rounding button, we all know providers have a hard time, especially in the pavilion because the layout is so large, to find their nurse when they need the nurse. The physician can actually walk up to the panel, touch the screen, and hit MD rounding. When they do so, it'll call the nurse and notify the nurse, let them know that the provider's in the room ready to see them. So that's what we consider a simple workflow with the smart panels. Another simple workflow that we implemented is the EVS screen. This is the only way our EVS staff is notified when our rooms are dirty. All of our EVS staff carry communication devices. We happen to use Volt phones here. And when a room is dirty, the nurse will press the room dirty button. It'll go to the EVS staff that's assigned to the room and the EVS manager. Once the EVS staff arrives, they're able to clean the room. And then when they're done, they can hit the room ready button. That room ready button actually goes to the charge nurse and their manager, so now they know the room is ready for a patient. Another simple workflow that the nurses really enjoy is the remind feature. The remind button is actually is basically a timer. When you hit the remind button, it goes to a screen that counts down minutes. We have all the way from 5 minutes to 120 minutes. And the nurse can use this feature to remind herself to go back and check on her patient. And we wanted it to be generic so they could use it for multiple reasons. For example, if a nurse administered a pain medication and needed to go recheck her pain level in 30 minutes, she would hit the remind and then hit the 30-minute timer. She would then be able to go in 30 minutes, her phone will actually send her alarm and let her know that she needs to go back and check on the patient. So that's been another simple workflow that we implemented. An example of some complex workflows within our smart panels is emergency response team. We knew it was going to be complex as we developed this because it needed to call the right team, needed to be accurate because patients were involved and we needed the team there immediately. And we wanted it to be safe. We wanted the nurse or care provider to be able to call a team with a single button press. With a single button press, they can notify the appropriate team. But with this technology, we knew we needed to have redundancy. So not only would the message go to our emergency response teams, Volt phones, it would also go to their pagers in case there is any single point of failure. We also needed to have a closed loop ownership. We wanted to make sure that we knew that the team received the message and that they were responding to the emergency. And so the way we did this is we built an alert message for our house supervisor. So she receives, with every emergency call, the house supervisor receives a second alert message that she has to confirm. If she doesn't confirm it within a certain time frame, our call center actually escalates the issue and calls the team themselves. And so that was our closed loop communication to make sure the team was called. So you can go to the next slide, Julie. We're going to discuss some of the lessons learned that we occurred with these smart panels. So we knew it was going to be complex. We also knew that we were going to have some false alarms. What we didn't take into consideration is how well EVS would clean the screens. And when they clean the screens, they would actually call an emergency response team. And so quickly after go live, we realized what the issue was. But we needed a way for EVS to clean the screen and still be able to call the teams without false alarms. So we implemented the clean screen. With the clean screen, the EVS staff is able to press that button, it locks the screen, and they're able to clean it safely without calling a team. So this significantly reduced our false alarm rates, but we still continued to have false alarms. You can go to the next screen. And we continued to monitor it. It's significantly reduced, but we still needed to see why were we still having them, and we wanted to further reduce our false alarms. And what we found out was that either a visitor would lean against the screen, it would take the screensaver away, and they would accidentally press a emergency response team. Or we've also found out that staff like to double click. They double click with their mouse throughout their computer, EMR, emails, so forth. They would actually wake the screen up with a double click. Well, if their finger happened to be over the code, they not only woke the screen up, they called the code team as well in error. So we added just a couple weeks ago, actually, a safety screen. It added one more layer of protection against false alarms. And so you can see we have a big button now. And so even if you double click or you lean on it, it does provide that extra layer of safety, but it still allows easy access for our caregivers to call a team should they need one. The next thing that I'm going to show you is how we made complex technology simple. So a good example of making complex technology simple is our fast style screens. So with our fast style screens, we wanted our end users to be able to have a hands-free single button press and it call the person that they need. But it needed to call multiple endpoint devices, whether it be a landline, a Volt phone, or a nurse call console. But we needed it to be seamless to our end user. They don't care what the endpoint device is. They care that it's calling the person that they need. And so we were able to do that with these smart panels. I'm going to turn it over to Melita, who is going to explain the complex technology behind making this solution work.
So I want to start with the simple concept. And the simple concept is to make this look easy, and it's a single button press, and the person in the room doesn't have to worry about what's going to happen, is really complicated from the technology side. If you are making decisions about your nurse call system or your endpoint communication device without thinking about these kinds of workflows, you're not going to be able to do complex integrations. This is actually over a dozen vendors involved. We've named the top 5. The messages go to Volt phones in most cases. So we have our partners at Volt. It's utilizing the Cisco network. So the wireless network has to be in place. Everything needs to be there. It's integrating with the PBX. I mean, how many people are now hearing VoIP and SIP? It's very different than it used to be in the old days. How do you make sure that you have, and for common nomenclature, it's all about plumbing. You have the plumbing in place from that button press to somebody's desk phone or to somebody's Volt. So you need to think about your PBX and how you make that happen. Your nurse call system, the advanced features that we've taken advantage of were not inherent in the nurse call system. If we bought the standalone nurse call product, we would not have been able to make this work. Halco is the integrator that helped us implement this solution. It was tough to bridge all of these different partners. And then finally, we had a middleware because these systems don't talk to each other easily. If you haven't dipped your toe into the middleware space yet, you need to start making eye contact with the middleware. It's where you're going to be able to do alarm management. It's where you're going to be able to do complex workflows. Our experience is no one is doing it completely to the extent that we would like to see. So we partner with the best folks that are out there, and we keep our eye on the future. ATI is the firm that is our integrator, and Connexall is our middleware. The build of the smart panels was hugely complex. We have to be very careful about how we manage change. If you move a panel, if we change the function of a room, we have to go back, we have to rebuild, we have to touch all the integration points. So sustaining this solution is something that's quite interesting as well. If you can flip to the next slide. We've focused a lot on sustaining and what it takes as we move on. And since we're running a little short of time, we're going to move on to lessons learned.